Eric.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Bernie, our youngest son, Bernie, when he was little, was really afraid of needles. We took him in one time to get his flu shot, and he was so jerky, they weren't comfortable doing it because they were worried the needle could be bent. So we had to get him calmed down and come back at a later date, which is kind of embarrassing, but I think we've all been there at times.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't feel safe with the target moving around.
I'm sorry you had to go through all that. Are you in charge today?
Yes, yep. Barb Thomas has a conference, so yes.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
So you got to be on your good behavior today, Bernie.
Yeah, okay. I'll give it my best shot.
So to speak.
Should be a good program.
So, yep. Yeah, we're up to 45 people, which is great. And obviously the numbers grow as we get closer to noon.
Yes, yes. Ryan, how's the restaurant doing?
It is due to reopen. We closed down over the winter here due to just some rougher times and, you know, kind of a little bit of a spike in COVID too. So just to be safe, we put her on pause, but due to open here in March. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll have to try to sneak out there.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
And Ryan, you've got a chef, is it from Chicago that's coming?
Yep. He just moved here. He's the newest resident of North Liberty and has a lot of previous experience. So we're really excited to have his leadership.
Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Welcome to the Iowa City Noon Rotary meeting. Our Rotary President Barb Thomas sends her regards. She had a conference today. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric Weiler. I'm the President-elect, so I'll be starting in July. And thank you again for joining us. We like to start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could ask everyone to take a second and please unmute yourself. And if you're able, if you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to
the flag
of the United States of America and to the
the
republic
republic
which
which stands
one
one
nation
nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. Like usual, we'll go ahead and start our meeting with Zoom tips, and I'd like to turn it over to Devin to provide us with some Zoom tips.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. President-elect Eric. Just a couple of things. We've all done this a lot. We've all been part of the Zoom, but just as reminders, check out that gallery view or speaker view to toggle between seeing the smiling faces of your fellow Rotarians or the speaker and his slides. So I encourage you to do that. Check out the reactions, a little smiley face with a plus to do things like party emoji or thumbs up. It's especially nice if you're the presenter to see all of these little things go by as you're talking, because sometimes it's hard to see the faces of the people that you were speaking to, but those little emojis help. And then you could sign in the chat, put your name down there so that we can get you for attendance. And finally, the participants tab will allow you to see who else is on the call, and more importantly, to raise your hand if you have a guest or a visitor, or if you are a visitor, and then during the questions at the end. Back to you, Eric.
Great, thank you, Devin. Well, this is a great opportunity for all of us to test our Zoom skills. If you are a visitor or a visiting Rotarian, if you could go to the participants and click raise hand, and Devin will call on you to introduce yourself. So please do that now for visitors or guests.
Dave, who do you have with you?
I'm seeing a few. If I miss anybody, I apologize. I think I see my parents. Michael and Sherry Brown. Dad was a president of Boonville, Arkansas Rotary Club. One of the reasons I love Rotary. So I was an easy recruit. I'm very happy to be here. He raised me right, I would say. I also see my two supervisors, Mike Wykamp and Mike Reinhardt. I'm really excited to see them. And I see Andy Dahl. He was the guy I was telling everybody here who knows so much about trees, and really a great guy to talk to. If I've missed anybody, I apologize. There's a lot of people popping up.
Well, welcome to all of you. If you just want to turn your camera on and unmute yourself and say hi. Dave, do you want to give everybody's names again real fast? Maybe your parents first. Michael and Sherry Brown.
Okay, hang on just a second. There we go. I'm Michael Brown. I'm from El Reno, Oklahoma, or Yukon, Oklahoma, but I'm very pleased to join you to listen to my son give his talk. Thank you for allowing me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
I think we're pretty good. Hi to Mike and Andy.
All right, perfect. Well, welcome all. Ryan, you have a guest or two?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Jesus Garcia returns again as a guest, and I am proud to announce that he will be putting in his official application this evening. So you all will get a chance to affirmatively, hopefully, welcome him into the club, and we'll have Jesus then get ready to ride the goat and all that exciting stuff down the road. So, and then I'm also really excited to bring my mother-in-law, Molly Dom, to be a guest as well. She is a gardening extraordinaire, and I figured she would enjoy Dave's talk today. So Molly, you want to say hi real quick?
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited about this.
Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Robin, I know you have a guest.
Yes, hi everybody. My guest is Jennifer New, and she is the Associate Director for the Obermann Center for Advanced Studies at the university. And she's also, Jennifer, I'm going to leave stuff out because you do everything. She's an author. She's curated exhibits. She teaches yoga, pretty much, and was told recently that she needs to do narration because she has such a calming voice. And next week she'll be our speaker, and wanted to sort of sit in and see what we're all about.
Welcome, Jennifer. Do you want to say hi real fast?
I can't eat anything while I'm watching this.
You can't.
Hi, Jennifer. All right, and let's see. I think that is everyone. So back to you, Eric.
Great. Welcome to all of our visitors and guests. And a special note, I want to tell Mr. and Mrs. Brown, and then Ryan, your mother-in-law, we really enjoyed having both Dave and Ryan in our club. They're both very active members, and they've been great additions to our club. So I'm glad you could join us today. Now we'd like to go on to announcements. And if you have an announcement, the same thing, go to participants and raise hand. I want to start with Tricia Smith. She has an announcement from the United Way. Tricia.
Thank you so much, Eric. I just wanted to first of all say hello to everyone, but also to remind you, I'm going to go ahead and put into the chat box again, if you are interested in registering for your COVID vaccine shots. There are 3 local locations in Johnson County in which you can do that, and it is done digitally. So I'm going to start to drop in one link into there to our newsletter page where you can find all 3 of those COVID vaccination registration links, one for UIHC, one for Hy-Vee, and one for Walgreens. And of course, while you're on our page, since Ryan and Anna have joined our Rotary meeting this morning or this afternoon, just to let you know, they too are leading the charge to finish our United Way campaign the end of February, and we are getting so close to that final goal. We've got about 10 days left to go, and we really think we can make it if we just get a little more help and a little more support. So while you're on the page, hey, if you want to get a free shirt, give a $50 donation and you can get a free I Am United shirt. Or if you just like to make a general donation, we are always appreciative of your support. So thank you all who have already given, and thank you for those who will consider an additional gift or your first gift to United Way. But please do check out the registrations for your vaccination. That is ultimately the important message I'm sending today.
Great. Thank you, Tricia, for sharing that, and special thanks to Ann and Ryan for co-chairing the United Way campaign. I know it's been a difficult year, but you've done great work this year, so thank you for that. Any other announcements? Devin, do we have any other hands raised? No? Okay. We'll go on now to our Rotary moment of positivity and gratitude. We all know the last year has been really challenging, so it's great when we can celebrate positivity and good news. And today's moment of positivity and gratitude is going to be done by Dianne Atkins. So hopefully, Dianne, are you with us today?
I had to unmute.
Oh, yep.
Okay, so thank you so much, and I appreciate Barb asking me to do this. My moment of positivity today is directed towards the role of science and research in my life. As many of you might know, I am a pediatric cardiologist retired from the University of Iowa and the Stead Family Children's Hospital. I first came to Iowa in 1980 after finishing my pediatric training to extend my training to pediatric cardiology. I joined the faculty when I completed it, and I spent my entire career here, 37 years. As a result, I do have a somewhat unique perspective on how my specialty has evolved over those many years. For a little background, congenital defects of the heart are the most common birth defect worldwide and affects approximately 1 of every 100 newborn babies. For most of these abnormalities, we can make vast improvements in the function of their hearts, but we never truly cure it. I was fortunate to care for 4 patients whom I first encountered during the initial 6 months of my training. 2 of them were in the hospital, having just had their first surgical procedure in July 1980. I became their primary pediatric cardiologist as I joined the faculty, and they required specific expertise I had of rhythm disorders and pacemakers. The procedures and treatments that they required over the ensuing years were not available in 1980. These included pacemakers and implantable defibrillators, small enough for children, even newborn infants, even premature infants. Medications to improve heart function and control heart rhythm abnormalities, and better operations and procedures to control both their rhythm abnormalities and to repair their defects. All 4 of these adults have grown, or all 4 of these patients have grown into productive adults. All are married, and 2 have children. And it was very difficult to say goodbye for all of us when I retired in 2017. I'd like to just sort of talk about one specific patient. And as he has shared all of this information publicly, I'm not breaking any confidences. He was born in 1970 with a defect that causes problems immediately after birth, with intense blueness or lack of oxygen to the body. He required immediate intervention with procedures that were not available had he been born just 5 years earlier. At that time, this particular defect had a 100% mortality within the first year of life, usually within the first 1 to 3 months. He had a, as we say, complete repair at around 6 months, but repair is definitely a misnomer. We were able to correct the cyanosis, but at the cost of making the weaker of the 2 pumping chambers do the stronger work for the rest of his life. Over the years, he developed many and virtually all of the long-term complications of the defect and the surgical procedure itself, requiring a pacemaker, attempts to correct the original surgery, multiple medications, and an implantable defibrillator, which saved his life 3 times before he underwent a heart transplant 3.5 years ago, just as I retired. He is now 51, back to work and raising his son. If anyone had told his cardiologists and surgeons in 1970, and probably even in 1980 or 1990, that he would survive and even thrive into middle age and hopefully beyond, no one would have believed it. These changes were made slowly with clinical trials, attempts at new procedures, some of which failed miserably at first. the incredible willingness of parents to participate with us as we develop these new procedures, and the ongoing effort of science to improve lives. I am so grateful that I was able to be a part of this process, which saw infant mortality drop from 15% in 1980 to 3% currently. And along with that, the drop in mortality has occurred as we took on ever more complicated and difficult procedures, as virtually many of the problems for which we had no effective therapies for in 1980 are now routinely treated, and the patients are living into adulthood. Indeed, there are now more adults with congenital heart disease than there are children. It's been an incredible career, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. I decided to be a pediatric cardiologist in junior high, and that was my goal from that day on until I completed my training. And finally, I am going to be on the receiving end today of many years of basic science research when I get my COVID vaccine this afternoon. So I am eternally grateful for what science has given us over these years. Thank you.
Great. Dianne, thank you so much for sharing that message with us. Dianne is a very active member of our Rotary Kerber Heart Safe initiative. And this is our club project that's really doing life-saving work. It's training people on CPR, and it's getting more AEDs in our community and saving lives. So thank you, Dianne, for serving on that committee as well. So I'm really excited for our program today, and I'd like to introduce Rotarian Ryan Bell to introduce our speaker today. Ryan?
Hey again, guys. I'm very proud to introduce Dave Brown today. I'm going to read his bio and then tell a quick story. Dave is the manager of landscape services for the University of Iowa. Prior to coming to Iowa, he was the campus planner for Texas A&M. Before that, he oversaw the landscape design team for landscape services at Oklahoma State. Prior to finding his passion for working within higher education, he owned and operated a design/build landscape company for several years. He's been married for 21 years, has a 19-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter. And on a personal note, I feel really happy that one of the last public outings I was able to make almost a year ago to the day, Dave and I went and watched the Hawkeyes and Oklahoma State Cowboys wrestling match at Carver. And it was an amazingly packed stadium, something that, you know, is just a far cry from reality today. But we had a lot of fun, and the Hawkeyes dominated pretty thoroughly. So Dave was the only guy in an Oklahoma State outfit there, but he held his chin high throughout the whole match. So it was a great time, and I'm proud to know Dave and welcome him into the club, and I'm really excited to hear this. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I bleed orange. I always have, I probably always will, but I also ought to add that I'm really proud to be here, very happy, and very pleased I've been welcomed into the Hawkeye community, and I consider myself a rare cowboy Hawkeye. And yes, we got dominated, but I was an orange tic tac in a sea of yellow, and everybody was really cool. So very cool fan base. So it just made me that much prouder of this school, and I'm proud to represent it today. Let me see if I can do this here real quick. Are you seeing my screen? Okay, so we're good. All right. Well, I'm really excited about the opportunity to share this. This is something I'm obviously very passionate about. I find it a lot of fun and very interesting. I hope you do. I'll do my best to make it interesting if I can. I love advocating for nature, and in particular, I love advocating for campus. In the course of this presentation, I'll lay out the case of why this is important and why the quality of campus and how it is maintained is really a community concern. It's something that affects everybody. And so I think this is a perfect place to bring this to your attention to this Rotary Club. So I've seen a couple of my supervisors. With Scott Greach, who's the associate director, I'm the manager, and we oversee landscape services and facilities management. And I'll talk about my supervisors here in just a second. But we take care of anything that's in the general education fund for the University of Iowa. So this is all the outdoor spaces, even rooftop gardens, courtyards, green spaces, gathering spaces, lawns, anything outside of the building. We are divided into teams of 9, depending on the skill and the training of each team. Mike Reinhardt and Mike Wykamp are the 2 supervisors that join me and Scott in that management team. Mike oversees landscape construction, and Mike Reinhardt, I should say, 2 Mikes, and Mike Wykamp oversees the landscape maintenance side of things. We also have 8 groundskeepers. We have an install crew, and we have mechanics. Before I get going too far, I want to draw your attention to this quote. It's one of the ones I thought was really cool. Ernest L. Boyer, who is the president of the Carnegie Foundation, was also an advocate and a prominent figure in higher education. He, in particular, worked with universities on recruitment, retention, graduation. He said groundskeepers are more important to college recruiting efforts than vice presidents are. And in particular, what he was really talking about is the grounds. And so I want to talk about the importance of grounds today as we go through this. Here's the rest of my team. We have concrete, heavy equipment, projects crews, tree crew. We have a turf crew, a mow crew. So the difference is mow is maintaining, edging, that type of thing. And the turf crew is restoring sites, laying down new sod, doing a lot more grading. We also have an irrigation guy, and we have a couple people who help us with float. A second quote I wanted to share with you before I really get going was from Henry Hume, better known as Lord Kames, and he was a 16th century figure, also tied with higher education in the colleges. But he was a key figure in the Scottish Enlightenment. And this was about the same time as the English Enlightenment period, where they started advocating aesthetics as a science. What he said was good professors are not more essential to a college than a spacious garden sweetly ornamented. And he was talking about the ability for nature to be a very good teacher for us. Those eight groundskeepers I showed you, they oversee these 8 areas. We have campus divided. And this helps us to garner our resources. They're somewhat limited, so the prioritization is helped by breaking it up into 8 areas and following a landscape management plan. Each area has different levels. We have level A, B, and C. Level A's are taken care of at the top quality, so this would be an area like the Pentacrest or like Hansher. I saw Chuck show up, so hi Chuck. But we also have level B's. Level B is also very highly maintained, and that's what most of campus is. Level C's are typically more your savannas and your woodlands, so undisturbed. We're in the middle of snow and ice, as you're well aware. 14 degrees does feel great today. I never thought I'd say that. The 1169 tons of salt and sand, Reinhardt could correct me, but I believe we're going to exceed 2,000 this year. It's been quite a winter. So some of the data I'm going to talk about today comes from previous presentations that I have. Some of it goes back to 2014. And the elephant in the room, so to speak, is COVID. I'm going to read my notes so I stay on track so I can end on time. The effects of COVID have had a significant economic impact, and universities have shared this burden and are forced to make budgetary cuts. Despite this and the obvious necessity of budgetary cuts, the data supporting the need for high quality campus environments remains pertinent, and I'll show you this as I go through. In today's presentation, I'll talk about where COVID affects the data, and so some of this needs to be taken with a grain of salt because we don't have the current data of what that true impact of this pandemic is. I'm going to start my presentation talking about landscape safety, in particular the emerald ash borer. We've gotten a lot of questions about that, and I know Barb in particular wanted to hear about it and to have me address the group. I'm also going to talk about campus impact on enrollment, and I'm going to talk about campus impact on mental health. So before I begin, I want to make a case for aesthetics, in particular, natural aesthetics, the nature, the landscape of things. We get asked a question sometimes that I'm going to answer for you and give you the means to answer it yourself if you want, or at least understand. But we're asked, when things are tough in something like a pandemic, or if tuition's going up, or the economy is hurting, why are we planting flowers? And even people within our own profession ask that sometimes, and there's a lack of understanding to the importance of it. Many intuitively recognize that the quality of the environments they live in impact the quality of their lives.
What is the sense?
However, modern trends in thinking combined with modern needs disproportionately emphasize artificial environments. This is defined as interior spaces and technology as we're going forward. And I'm not saying that this is not important. I'm just saying this is where the thinking leads. Our outdoor spaces are often deprioritized to the point of underfunding, and they fall short of their full potential. An example of that is, for instance, the river. It's a highly visual and important part of our campus. One of the things that makes us very unique. And yet we have to figure out our resources and able to bring that aesthetic to the level that we want. And we also have to figure out how we're going to be better stewards from the environmental impact that we have on that river. And there's lots of conversations that go on within our offices on how to do this. And because of this, even within the Committee for Campus Planning, it's been identified to try to bring the river along, to open this up, to give access to the university community and the community at large, but also figuring out how we can be better stewards and help the ecology of this river. The brain functions at a higher capacity with adequate stimulation, and research is showing that our environments will aid in sensory stimulation in a good environment, a high quality natural environment, or in a poor environment, and oftentimes even in an artificial environment, it will cause sensory deprivation. Adequate quality stimulation from high quality natural environments releases a lot of endorphins, or the endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. Dopamine, often called nature's record button, is very influential and important. In fact, it's essential to memory formation, long-term and short-term. We tend to form more memories outside, and especially positive memories, because of this, because of nature's impact on the release of these endorphins. There's also a growing tide of evidence that's showing, let's see, sorry, I missed my place, but there's also a growing tide of evidence showing that nature stimulates our senses more efficiently and more in depth than artificial environments do. Excessive amounts of time we're spending in artificial environments are being linked to decreased cognition and increased mental illness. Funding mechanisms driven by belief in pragmatic thinking and a plethora of other highly perceived priorities can and really are impacting the quality of our outdoor environments. This is having an unintentional and poorly understood impact on our learning, living, and playing environments, and especially our quality of life. There's a couple of quotes I want to read you because I thought they were really pertinent to what I'm talking about. But there's an article from Andrew Lothian called Measuring and Mapping Landscape Quality. He says, beautiful scenery is restorative. It calms the soul, reduces stress, enlivens and stimulates creativity. It accelerates healing of hospital patients, and it reduces stress for students who are swatting for exams or studying for exams. So in the university, if you read the university statement, it states that the highest priorities of the University of Iowa are patients and students. So this should be of great importance to all of us. Another article by Jill Suddy, the article is called How Nature Can Make You Kinder, Happier, and More Creative. She says, participants who walked in natural settings versus urban settings reported decreased rumination. Rumination really defined as worry, kind of the opposite of meditation. So worrying about what you did, worrying about what you said, or worrying about what you will do or will say. She believes results like these need to reach city planners and others whose policy are impacting our natural spaces. It's very important to be sure to incorporate these empirical findings from psychology into these decisions as they relate to landscape and planning. I want to talk real quick about what landscape is, but before we get to that, I want to share with you some of the conversations I've had through the course of my career and start with what landscape is not. Landscape is not only a luxury. Oftentimes that's misperceived. And when it's perceived that way, we miss a lot of opportunities to be able to promote our landscapes and to bring those along. It's not a superfluous thing. It is directly tied to many criteria: cognitive thinking, mental health, physical health. I'm going to show you a whole lot of things. This was my favorite conversation I had with a project manager once. Of course, he was of an architectural persuasion, but he said, we build the buildings and you guys come in and hang the curtains. Now, if you look at landscape in that perspective, you're going to be missing a lot that our profession can offer and really should be offering, because everything from building placement to pedestrian and traffic flow, how the sun hits it, how the plants are going to come into it, the social spaces, the quads and the courtyards that they make. Piece of architecture is not isolated. It's not a bubble into itself. It's a part of the landscape. It's a total package. So these two things really need to be working in coordination with each other, with the architecture and the landscape. Landscape is not going to be successful without intelligent, concerted planning and design. And the key word here is concerted. University, it's not going to be successful without the university and community support and their understanding of the importance, which is one of the reasons I was excited to share this with you. It needs adequate funding and resources on par with the university vision. Now, that's part of what the campus master plan is and what they're doing. It's kind of high-level goal setting. So you've got to decide what you want out of the campus, and you want to decide how you want that to function for the university. And then you need to make sure that you're able to get there with the resources. It needs highly skilled and dedicated staff to maintain, which we have. In particular, we need staff, again, which we have, that knows this campus inside and out. It needs to have an understanding of the importance of maintenance. In higher education, as well as any landscape, the landscape maintenance and the quality of the landscape and the longevity of the landscape, for that matter, are tied together. If you can't maintain it, it'll certainly revert back really quickly. And so bringing in the people who have this firsthand knowledge, these groundkeepers and these maintenance people, highly essential. What Michael Wycamp oversees is one of the most important things you can have on a university for the quality of it. And this is why I promote more concerted and in-house design, because it needs to be coming from a singular source that has an understanding of this campus master plan, and it needs to have the expertise of the people who are working and living in it from a day-to-day basis. So what is landscape? Landscape is critical infrastructure. It's the body of systems, networks, and assets that are so essential that their continued operation is required to ensure the security of a given place, its economy, and the public's health and or safety. One of the topics today, obviously, is safety. Each one of these cells of the hive is different presentations I've done through the years. Today, I'm really going to look at cognitive enhancement, mental health, recruitment. But all of these things and many more are why a landscape is important to a university. What it is it's an irreplaceable extension of the classroom. In fact, studies are showing that learning in an outdoor environment may be more effective than learning in an indoor environment for some of the reasons I've already stated. It's a wellness center unlike anything else. You can see that it has a lot of impact on social health, environmental, mental, and physical health. And environmental health in particular, this is where we need to have better stewardship and set the example for the rest of the community. So a quality landscape will incorporate all of these. So the University of Iowa Master Planning Committee came up with their values, and these are their values. And in particular, I'm going to draw your attention to healthcare and safety and security of campus. The other one I'll draw your attention to is we want to encourage interaction and collaboration within the university and amongst the surrounding communities. That's one of the main points I want to leave you today, is that the university campus is a community resource. It's one where we encourage people to come, take a walk, to learn, to interact, and certainly we ask for and welcome any support. So we'll start with safety. Get asked a lot of questions about this little booger. It's caused a lot of havoc across campus. This was found in Gibson Square in 2016. In the United States, in Michigan, that's where it first appeared in 2002. That's where it was first noticed anyway. Though the dendrochronology indicates that it's probably been in the United States since the early 1990s. So the reason these things are not so great is they love the ash tree, and they love other trees too, like the fringe tree. They seem to attack these two trees, and Andy could probably tell you a lot more than I ever could. But where ash tree has very little give, it makes a great baseball bat, but it exacerbates the problem because they bore into these things and make the trees very brittle. In a typical tree, you may have some hangers or you may have some branch drop. But when these things become brittle, almost glass-like, you can have major limbs fall and you can even have the trees fall. And it's one of the reasons we took it so seriously. What we found was we had about 600 trees that were a concern. And this was obviously a big safety issue. And safety is one of the top criteria in the university. So the good news is we're 95% done with the removals. As we remove trees, we're trying to replace them at least at a 2-to-1 and maybe a 3-to-1. And the reason that we're doing this is we see the university as a living laboratory, and we want it to be an educational component. So we're diversifying the palette for that reason, so that we can expose more people on campus to the differing trees. And we were having a little bit of a conversation before this, Eric and I, about trying to get as many of the genus and species of native trees and what will grow here as well. But sometimes we can do 3-to-1. But the other reason we want to do that is if we ever have another issue like Dutch elm disease or ash borer or pine wilt nematode or anything that may come along, we no longer want to be in a position where it impacts us to the level that the ash borer impacted us. And this has caused a lot of concern, especially with us. In our offices, we're a bunch of tree huggers, so we can assure you we're not taking trees down unless they have to come down. And in this case, they did. So if you see a tree coming down, there's a good possibility that this is why. Moving on to recruitment. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this was released by the Board of Regents a couple years ago. This was some information you can see below. Vanessa Milla, Iowa's public universities show 11.8 billion on impact on the state. So the point that I want to make here is the university is critical to the community, not just to Iowa City, not just to Coralville and North Liberty, but to the entire state economy. Iowa Public Universities support about 1 in every 14 jobs in the state. It adds about $6.5 billion in income to the Iowa economy. In recent times, this was prior to COVID, and of course COVID hasn't helped, but there was some budget shortfalls and budgets. The state portion of the public higher education budget shrunk, with lawmakers recently pulling back committed appropriations mid-year during statewide shortfalls and then not restoring the cuts later. Of course, the funding impacts the university campus, and the effects of campus do have an impact on the university. So moving to that point, where the university is critical to the community, the campus is critical to the university. In an article by Sasaki, who do planning in most, or not most, I should say, but a lot of the major universities across the United States, they say the campus landscape is an institution showcase. It's the front door and the welcome page. It often reveals more about a college or a university than all the pamphlets, banners, speeches by recruiters and administrators. Fair or not, people subconsciously associate the quality of the institution with the quality of the institution's appearance. In fact, people who are visiting our campus, or any campus, I should say, this is a statistic coming from, well, I'll find the citation. Oh, there it is. Anything that I quote here is the citations are at the bottom of each of these pages. But 62% of people visiting campuses chose a university based on the campus appearance, in particular buildings and landscape. Of that, 90% of people's experience is from an exterior space. They may go into a classroom or a lab, but most of the time the campus tours and everything else are that exterior space perspective. Goes on to say that on average, within 10 minutes, most people have made up their mind about what they think about a university. And this is from where they park and where the tours start. With COVID, it's going to drive up a problem that was already rising. President Harold's talked about the birth dearth, which is the next generations of people who come from traditional families sending their kids to school. There's less births. Also, people are looking for other options within, maybe they're looking for non-traditional options, on-the-job training, military training, trade schools, those type of things. And so higher universities are already posed to have to compete a lot more. So the importance of the landscape will exponentially grow, and COVID has only made that worse. So that's one of those things where I said, take it with a grain of salt. It clearly underscores the importance of the facilities, workers, and the academic mission of our state's institutions, says Catherine Carford. Catherine Carford is a member of Noah Levitz. What I find interesting about this study is Noah Levitz is out of Cedar Rapids, so this is our backyard. There's a friend of mine, Dave Jackson, who wrote an article, Landscape Projects Improve Campus Appearance. He wrote this about 20 years ago. And here's what's crazy to me, is if you are looking across the United States for which universities are making the biggest impacts and intros within campus beautification, at the very top of the list is Ole Miss. They are winning all the awards. They are doing some amazing things. And as of this morning, if you go to their webpage, this article from our own Dave Jackson is on that webpage. So they take it very seriously. And I think we need to open our eyes to it and to revisit this as well, because this has a tremendous impact on our university and its recruitment efforts. In fact, if you look, Ole Miss is doing some crazy cool things. Well laid out landscape with sufficient open space will assist in the recruitment of top-notch students and faculty. And I know the recruitment of faculty, we want the best, not only in the university, but also in the hospital. This article right here by Janice Griffith, Open Space Preservation, an Imperative for Quality Campus Environments, is one of the most informative that I've read in a very long time. And I really, if you are as interested as I am, this is a must read. So I got a little bit of time. I got 10 minutes, so I'm gonna get into mental health a little bit. Biophilia and environmental psychology, which is the study of human well-being and connectivity to the environment. It's an offshoot of field of brain science that studies the relationship of living beings and the natural environment. This is where I'm getting a lot of the research and the information that I'm going to share with you. A lot of the original research that I did came from a presentation where I worked in conjunction with student counseling at Oklahoma State University. That's one of the reasons why some of the information is 2014 or 2015, but I've been trying to update it as well and make it more pertinent to the university here. I am going to skip through this. This gets into a lot of the mechanisms of the brain and why nature is impacting. I will say that if anybody wants any or all of this information, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to share it. And I may talk to Devin too a little bit and see if I can just get this whole presentation. That way you'll have access to all the research and the articles in it. So for this, I want to start on nature on the brain. Nature, in particular, nature's impact or the lack of nature's impact on the brain. So we're going to start with the lack of nature. Urbanization, as it's occurring around the world, has been associated with an increase in stress-related disease and mental disorders in people in living urban environments. These developments increase the need for outdoor open spaces. As a result of urban expansion and densification, such open spaces are becoming more and more scarce and no longer provide available everyday resources for restoration from stress in urban environments. Several studies have demonstrated faster and more complete physiological restoration due to exposure to green as opposed to built space, as indicated by cardiovascular and other physiological stress markers. It goes on to say, and this is where I think it's cool, it may also increase stress resilience by attenuating or buffering the physiological response to a future stressor. So putting that in other words, nature not only calms you down in the moment, not only is it healthy for you mentally and physiologically, but it helps you prepare for future stressors. So things that may come down the road, you're going to be a whole lot more equipped for the time that you spend in nature. I'm sorry, I'm skipping through some of this, but I'm watching the time a little bit and wanting to get to some of the cool aspects or things I think are cool. Maybe not so cool, but needs to be said. When I was working with counseling services, this was a disturbing trend back in 2015, where we were watching the rate of students needing counseling services skyrocketing. It was going up really fast at an alarming rate. You can see back then, anxiety and depression doubled within the last 5 years, from 2009 to 2014, I believe. And we don't know what the true effect of COVID has, so we can only anticipate that it's much worse. So what's causing this? There's a number of things, and this could be a whole lot of conversation. I've got a list of about 50 things. But there's a few things that are different in our world. We've talked about urbanization, we've talked about artificial environments, and those are certainly part of it. I think we're all aware that the news media and it's very negative right now. It's hard to have a positive outlook sometimes if you immerse yourself in that too much. But because this is a landscape presentation, I want to focus on the absence of landscape. This isn't only happening within the adult realms or the college age students, but it's starting early in childhood. We know that you don't want to be in a state of stress in a prolonged period of time. The body has to have exposure to epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. Those are essential for our survival. However, you don't want to have prolonged exposure to any of these. Prolonged exposure to cortisol can cause a number of things, such as anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, weight gain, heart health issues, sleep problems, memory and concentration impairment. Though there are differences with individuals and even gender, experts approximate that the brain reaches maturation at approximately the age of 25, give or take. Like I said, that's very variable to the individual. But they also say that the ages of 18 to 25 are a critical period of growth. Obviously, that's the time that we are getting these kids. We're getting these kids. It's one of the reasons I love what I do is we get kids coming in and we give them an education, and we are responsible for the grounds, the environment, and that education where they go and they change the world and they develop into adults. But during this period, there's a very vulnerable period of time while they're at the university. Within young kids, this before they even get here, there's a lot that's happening. There's some things that are causing kids to increase that experts feel are really adding to a lot of the problems, some of which are a lack of understanding of consequences with parenting styles, helicopter parenting. But the things, again, what I want to focus on is there is a reduction of free and creative play that's becoming more and more so within these young people. And there's a reduction of the availability of nature to young people. A lot of this is happening with the millennial and Generation Z. I just wanted to say this, that there's a lot of gratitude I had for the time and the age that I grew up. I was probably that kid jumping out of the swing, and I'd tell you there was concrete underneath me. Lots of bumps and bruises, but I'm still here. I'm really grateful I had the chance to run and catch fireflies and slugs and snails and the rope swings that we had that were nearby our house. I was really fortunate, and I think a lot of people at our age are. This is a study, if you get a chance, really interesting. I'm going to skip it for now. But open space provides emotional relief from tightly compacted academic facilities. And I should point out that we are considered an urban campus surrounded by city. Central core of many of the universities have reached densities of urban proportion, which promote physical and mental stress. Carefully designed open spaces, however, provide a welcome contrast to the compact, intense academic core. So I say all that to make this point. Outside of its people, the campus is one of the most, if not the most valuable resource that a university has. So why should we care? It is an irreplaceable extension of the classroom, with numerous studies showing it's the most effective environment for learning. It's possibly the greatest recruitment tool we possess. It tremendously impacts the quality of life for the university community, as well as the surrounding community. It's a wellness center like anything else, impacting mental, physical, and social health. And it plays a major role in student retention and graduations. But most importantly, this is our home. So the more you can get outside, the better. I would encourage you to do it. I know 14 degrees is still cold to some. I'm personally enjoying 14 degrees after what we've been through, but there are some things that we can and we should be doing, but for questions, I'm going to end it here. So I have time to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Dave. We have time for a couple quick questions. If you have a question, please click raise hand. And Devin, if you could watch and help me call on those folks, anyone who has their hand. I see a Gary Pacer right off the bat. Gary?
Yeah, Dave, boy, there's a lot of information in what you got here. Quick question on replacement for emerald ash borer. I see over the years, one of the most robust trees in landscaping seems to be ginkgo. Are you using that?
We are using ginkgo. And in fact, Andy Dahl, our arborist, his lights just went on, I'm sure if he's listening. But we just received a gift as I think, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's the largest ginkgo collection in Iowa now. We have a lot of varieties of ginkgo, dwarf ginkgos, weeping ginkgos. But over on this, is it the south side, or I'm sorry, the east side of Hampshire, you can go see all these ginkgos, but we do have a lot of ginkgos across campus as well.
Awesome, thank you.
And Chuck Swanson, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I really don't have a question. I just have a comment. And I want to say one of the best things of working at the University of Iowa was, working with and meeting colleagues across campus. And I just have to say thanks publicly to Dave for the great work that he does. And I just want to comment that the fish that we have installed in front of Hampshire, that was not an easy project at all, but Dave is the one that took it under, his belt and with his staff and everything, and he just seamlessly made it happen. So thank you, Dave, for all the great work, because obviously today you make a huge difference. And I think a lot of times unsung heroes, they don't get thanked enough. So really, David, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Chuck. I feel the same. Back at you.
Great. We have time just for one more quick question, if anyone has a question.
Hey, Cranston, you're up.
Hey, thanks a lot, Dave. I was really curious about that interesting application where it's the tree inventory application. Where can we find that?
Andy, chime in here, but I know you could go, if you go to the internet and you type in University of Iowa campus trees, you'll see a website. I think it's uitrees.edu, I believe, something like that. But just type it in and you'll bring up our GIS map. This was Andy and Mike and all of those guys who I believe are still on the call. But that's where the credit belongs, and it's probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say it's probably the best inventory in any university in the nation, and it's online. And so if you go there, you can click on any tree and see the nomenclature, the genus, species, the cultivar, and so on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave.
You're welcome.
Well, Dave, we want to thank you so much for your informative and great presentation today. In honor of your program today, our Rotary Club is going to make a donation in your honor to Polio Plus, which is an international Rotary initiative. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will match that 2-to-1. And this will provide 70 polio vaccinations around the world. So thank you again for your time today. Before we close with the 4-way test, looking at the forecast, it looks like it's going to be 35 degrees this weekend. If you think about it, a couple of days ago, the wind chill was approaching 30 below. That's a 65-degree swing. So I think myself and Dave would encourage everyone to try to get outside as much as you can this weekend. So we like to end with the 4-way test. If everyone could please unmute and join me in the Rotary 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better
friendships?
Will it be beneficial
To all concerned. Great. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.